And joining us right now to talk to us about the Drogba drama, a friend of mine, a friend of yours, the guy with the $1 million smile, Lloyd Barker of TSN 690. Lloyd, welcome, my friend.
How are you, sir?
I'm very good, my friend. Better yet, congratulations and enjoy the gig there on TSN. It couldn't go to a better guy than yourself, Lloyd. Lloyd, let's get right into it. Didier Drogba, all over the news here in North American MLS. He won't play the first 4 games because it's on turf. A lot of people really disgusted at this. Not too many in Montreal are happy as well. What's your take on it?
A lot of angles to look at this one, Anthony. A lot of angles. On the one hand, he does have a point in a number of his suggestions about the injury aspect of it, of playing on turf, and certainly at his age, I can attest to the fact that playing on turf does have an effect on older players. Even if it's a one-off game, there is a lasting effect, especially if you've gone into the game with a history of injury or a current injury for that matter. And in the case of Didier Drogba, he was banged up at the last couple weeks of the season last year, and he more or less carried that over into the start of this year. And so, yeah, there is a legitimate angle that he's presenting when he says, there's a risk of playing on turf. And again, I can attest to that personally. If I play right now on turf, my knee will be swollen for 2 or 3 days, and it would take me that much time to recover. So I can attest to that personally. On the other hand, it becomes more or less what I call a perfect storm against the Impact, because 4 of the first 5 games are on turf, and for that matter, he's missing that many games, and Didier Drogba is an important part of this team. And you always want to start off strong. You start your season strong and get as many points as possible and win as many possible in the beginning. And so that plays against them in that all these games are on turf, and Didier Drogba doesn't want to play on turf because we know the obvious risk, which I just stated. And so that's against them. Now, in saying all of that, I do believe that there is an aspect that he can play 2 or 3 of those games in the first 5 games. I see an avenue where he can play if he wants to, because I look at it like he can miss the 2 Olympic Stadium games, which are on turf, but he could play the first game at Vancouver, which is on Sunday. He would have 13 days in between the next game, which is at Dallas, and he would have 14 days the game after that, I believe, it's Chicago. And so for me, going in, he's going to be banged up if he plays on turf because, like I said, he's closer to 40 than not. He's 38 years old. He's going to be 38 very soon. And so he's going to be swollen. He's going to be aching, but he's got enough time for me to recover. But if they don't want to play him because it's a big risk, because it's the beginning of the season and you're not going to win the season after 5 games, I also understand that aspect.
So let me ask you this, Lloyd. Let me tell you, first and foremost, I believe Didier Drogba will go down in history as one of the greatest players in the game that we love, that we've ever watched. And this guy is important for the city of Montreal, the Montreal Impact, and the league MLS. If he didn't do his homework before he came over here, shame on him, because he must have done some of the homework before coming over to Montreal and knowing that there'd be facilities with AstroTurf. That's one. 2, I'm going to put the cards on the table, Lloyd. You're a former pro. You're a former international player. You played your heart out when you played, whether it was for club or country. You walk into that locker room and you look at each and every one of your teammates, Lloyd, and you say to them, guys, I can't play for 4 or 5 games to start the season because, you know what, I'm at this age and I got to take care of myself before I worry about you and the team and the league. I got to tell you, that would leave a real bad taste in my mouth.
I think one of the risks that the club runs here, Anthony, is that they may fall guilty of being unrealistic to the fact that Didier Drogba will not repeat that unbelievable scoring rate that he put on the table last year, that I displayed as well. 11 goals in 11 games, 12 overall in 14 appearances, including playoffs. He's not going to score at that rate this year. He's a year older. He's a year banged up. Teams that will be figuring it out a little bit more, as we know, we've seen in the past. He'll have a strong influence. We know that, but he won't repeat that. And I think in saying that, I think now the message I get from the club from yesterday, and certainly from Didier, is that we're not really concerned about the beginning of the season, and that's whether wrong or right. That is their message that they're portraying. They're believing that when Didier Drogba is needed, he will be there to deliver. And I suspect they're talking about maybe the second half of the season. That, for me, is what it concerns me a bit if I'm an Impact fan, because I just think there's so much reliance on Drogba going forward in that aspect that you're saying, okay, we're going to win the season at the second half of the year. And we know that at the beginning of the season, it's very important to compile points, as many as possible, so you're not playing catch-up the entire year. It's the same as in a game. If you go behind, you're chasing the game because your game plan suddenly changes because you didn't expect to be behind. And so it's so vitally important that these guys pick up as many points as possible in the beginning for how the rest of the season shapes up. And that's where Didier Drogba comes in. So if he's missing these games at the beginning, they really run the risk of falling behind very quickly, and then who knows how it's going to end up after that.
Not only that, Lloyd, but I got a feel for Biello. Here's a young coach. He's going to get the start in his first game as the head coach of the Montreal Impact. Hopefully he'll get the full season under his belt as a young coach on the rise here in MLS against Vancouver. This puts pressure on him. This puts the spotlight on him. And undeservedly not right. That's one. Joey Saputo is invested a ton of money in this player. I don't think it's fair for him to be dishing out this kind of money when the player says he doesn't want to play on turf. And the great fans of the Montreal Impact don't get to watch him. You made a lot of great points. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, TFC is loaded for bear. We know that with the offseason moves. Orlando City, Kyle Larn will be joining me in 15 minutes. They're ready to battle for a playoff spot. DC's not a pushover. This is not, and New York Red Bulls, we know what they're all about, Lloyd. If they start without the first 4 games of Didier Drogba and they go 0-4 or 1-3, turn out the lights, Montreal. The party's over. You ain't getting into the playoffs.
Well, look, on the other hand, this team also without Didier Drogba went to the CONCACAF Champions League finals. And they've added 2 other pieces in Ontivero and Harry Shipp. And so if you're an optimist, you look at that and you say, you know what, they did it last year, they could probably do it again in terms of carrying over that CONCACAF Champions League success. Now, they didn't really start strong. That was under different leadership under Frank Lopez, and we know all the drama there. We don't even want to revisit that. So there is something positive. There is a light at the end of the tunnel to look through and see in terms of the rest of the personnel in the group. I think Harry Shipp will add something behind the striker, and I think Ontivero, once he gets a grasp of the league, he will also be a driving force out wide and handily replace Dilly Duca and maybe even Justin Mapp, who I love as a football player. Let's not forget Ignacio Piatti. I expect him to drive on it and improve even more this year. And in the back line, the Impact are as solid as any other team in Major League Soccer. And Evan Bush is reliably in goal. And Don Adell, you've seen he's now become a general in there. And they're so congested in midfield that anybody they put beside him, they should be handily and capable as well. So I think when you look at that, Anthony, taking Didier Drogba out of the equation, they are good enough to compete. And they're good enough to show well in every match. Now, Didier Drogba, as we know, if he's healthy, if he's fit, he's committed, if his mind is here and his heart is right, he's a force. He's a driving force. He'll be 38 years old, but he will still be influential in matches, though he won't score a goal a game. He will still be influential in matches, and he's the one, if this team is to win Major League Soccer, that has to produce the numbers of an all-star. It's not going to be Dominic Odor, and I always have to bring him up because he's a second choice center forward, and you've got Cameron Porter and the likes. But, it's all about Didier Drogba. Dominic Odoro is not the man that's going to take this team to a Major League Soccer title. And I apologize to Dominic for sounding like I'm disrespecting him because I'm not. It's just a fact. If this team is going to win, it has to be under Didier Drogba's leadership, and he has to score a bundle of goals.
Well said. What is your prediction for 2016 MLS Final? Give me an Eastern and a Western, 2 teams that will get there.
MLS Final. I'm going Los Angeles, even though they got wiped off the table by Santos Laguna. And I'm going with Orlando as a sleeper team. So if you're a betting man, you'll probably win a few bucks there because I don't think anyone expects Orlando. But I like what they're doing there. I liked them last year. They just missed the playoffs. I think Kaká will be better this year. I think Kyle Larin will be even better this year. And Notarino coming in adds a new dimension to that team. And I like the way they play. I like their approach to the game. And I'm calling them as a sleeper finalist. And I apologize to my Montreal Impact fans for not saying.
Wow, we got Kyle Lauren coming up.
Drama here.
Yeah, listen, Lloyd, we got Kyle Lauren coming up in 3 minutes from Orlando. I'm going to mention to him that you've picked them to get to the final. I think he'd be really happy with that. Lloyd, we know you're busy. We know that you got to get going. We really appreciate your time. But you got to do me a favor. You got to send me a text or an email in regards to and finding out where Drogba got that wonderful winter white coat, furry coat. I love it. I want one. I don't care what the price is on it. I want that. My birthday's coming up. I'll send the bill to my wife.
Fun. Have a great day, Anthony.
Love you, Lloyd. Have a great show, and thanks again, my friend.
All right, it's a pleasure.
Lloyd Barker of TSN 690. He'll be co-hosting there tonight. Great guy. Love having him on.